Hello, welcome to Wanderlusting Lawyer. Thank you for joining me today. Candidly, this is not the video I intended to film today. I had something else lined up, but I've been thinking about this topic for a while. I'm feeling a little feisty. It's been kind of a tough week. My wife was injured, hurt her elbow pretty badly, but hopefully, she's on the mend. But it's got me thinking about sort of personal responsibility, the way we treat people. And so I wanted to discuss this topic of social media and the Camino de Santiago. And, you could call this Don't Let Social Media Ruin Your Camino, or a more targeted title is probably Don't Let the Echo Chamber of Social Media Ruin Your Camino. I talk a lot about how I get inspiration for my videos from the Facebook Camino groups that I'm a part of. Pretty active participant, like to help out when I can. I ask my own questions. Sometimes I post these video links if I think they helpfully respond to somebody's question. And I'd say the majority of people tend to be positive, but there are just always those negative individuals that feel like they need to comment on something you have said, that you've commented it to help someone else with their question, and it seems to be not in a very positive or constructive way. Now, of course, it's hard to read tone behind a computer screen. We all know that by now in 2024. But sometimes those moments you're just like, why? What was the purpose of this, right? When it takes just one saying I love is it takes just as much energy to be kind as it does to be unkind. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. Yeah, this is really off the cuff, even though I'd wanted to make this video for a while, and I did write down a couple of my thoughts. I'm really just going to be speaking from the heart about this because it's something I feel so importantly about. Like, I really do not understand why people's first instinct in all scenarios is not just kindness and compassion. I don't get it. So if you want to share your thoughts on that below, I'd appreciate it. But one thing before I kind of dive in that I want to mention is that something to keep in mind. I think it's my perspective. It can now be different because I've walked the Camino 3 times, 3 different routes. Since 2018, and before I walked the first Camino, I was in 1 or 2 Facebook groups, but I just had a couple of questions. I didn't do it like I did my research on the Camino. I wanted to be prepared, but I would say these groups have exploded in popularity even in the last 5.5, 6 years, and I want to encourage you to ignore the negativity as much as possible. That is absolutely not representative of the people you're going to meet on the Camino and the experience you're going to have. There's always a bad apple, right? In every on every tree, in every bunch, or is that a grape in every bunch? I don't know. There's always going to be people maybe that aren't particularly positive when you interact with them. I had my experience on my Camino Frances that I've talked about a couple times with a really homophobic gal from Texas. But overwhelmingly, the people you are going to encounter are so kind, curious, thoughtful, compassionate. That is why everyone talks about Camino magic, or one of the main reasons. So, my opinion, these people that just spew negativity on pretty much every post, they either are keyboard warriors who have never walked the Camino, won't walk the Camino, or haven't in a long time, and just have nothing better to do with their energy. Or they're perhaps people that once they get to the Camino and they understand that vibe is 100% not like accepted and not what the vibe is, they change their tune. So I just want to make that initial comment. And I want to talk about what I have deemed this echo chamber effect of Camino social media, Facebook groups. It really is Facebook. If you're on the Reddit group or in like some of the other independent forum fora, I suppose I haven't really seen that as much, but Facebook, man, just people get so frustrated, and like if somebody asks the same question that someone else has asked, who cares? Scroll by, right? Like, yeah, we know you can use the search function. Sometimes the search function works great. Sometimes it doesn't. Maybe someone joined Camino literally to find out information, or someone joined Facebook literally to find out information about the Camino, and this is their first group. They didn't even know there was a search function. So, like, either be kind and constructive or scroll past 100%. But for me, what I define as this echo chamber effect is like certain aspects of the Camino or certain theories, philosophies, ideas have been accepted, have become dogma, right? They are the book of Camino, and pretty much everyone else agrees. And if anyone has a different opinion, they get roasted, is for lack of a better word. And so you tend, and I'll give some examples, but you tend to think, if you're only looking at the Facebook group, this is how people think, this is how people are. And I want to be very clear, it's 100% not the case. Like, the experience when you're on social media behind your computer and when you get to the Camino are wildly different. So a few examples. You must carry and pack only 10% or less of your body weight, or you will be unable to complete the Camino. You'll be miserable. You'll be injured. Listen, I get it. It's a wonderful rule of thumb. It makes sure you're not overpacking. You're not packing your fears, as they say. But I've talked about this ad nauseum. I pack more than that. I know I'm strong enough to handle it. I use everything I bring, and I often bring extra things to be able to be the type of pilgrim I want to be and be able to help others. Even if I only use one pole, usually I have two. I've given it to people in need and collected at the end of the day. I have extra bandages. I have snacks. I have things I share. So to me, that, like, in my packing videos, people on my packing videos make comments about, really? You bring all that? You walk with all that? Are you packing your fears? I mean, how I've explained, yeah, I use everything. I love everything I pack. If I bring something new and I don't end up using it, I tell you guys that. I'm like, hey, I tried this out, didn't need it, won't come with me next time. It doesn't mean I wasn't happy to have it. So it's just like this idea that people kind of think they know what's best for you. That tends to irk me. And you will see on the Camino people with bags of every shape and every size, small day packs. Some people have been backpacking through Europe and they have a pack double, triple what this 10% weight is, and they're fine. They're doing their Camino their way. Another one is, vegetarians will be fine. There are fresh veggies everywhere. Now, I've made videos on my thoughts on the great vegetable debate on the Camino de Santiago, and I felt very vindicated when I took my wife to Spain recently, and she is a vegetarian and could not understand why it was so difficult to find fresh vegetables or like veggie forward dishes on menu restaurants. I'm not going to argue. Of course, every supermarket has vegetables. You want to buy them. You want to cook in a Camino albergue kitchen. Yeah, of course you can do that. But by and large, if you go to restaurants, excuse me, the only veggie you're going to see on the menu is maybe like a delicious mushroom dish, usually with a lot of olive oil, or some type of simple salad. So it's just the reality of the experience. Oh, another one. No one cares about your race, your sexuality, your beliefs, this and that. Coming from people that are not a part of the same demographic group of the person who's asking. So I've talked about this and how you can be a better ally for your LGBTQ plus Camino brothers and sisters. And people say, nobody cares who you're married, who you're dating. But I have had experiences where people were, if not prejudicial, they were certainly ignorant. And so that's my experience, and everyone's allowed to have their thoughts on that. But if anyone asks, go in the group. So if anyone asks these types of questions, 99 times out of 100 the answers are, you're fine, no one cares about color on the Camino, and it just really minimizes people's experience. So that's something I have difficulty with. But I don't want you to get confused. It doesn't mean that I have seen or experienced a lot of overt prejudice, or obviously not me, but seen a lot overt racism and things like that. The Camino is largely a wonderful, welcoming place. but people have these experiences, and on the Camino, you have a voice to talk to other people and express that. Sometimes in social media, it seems like you don't. I just had this experience, and that's kind of why I have this video in my mind. Oh, tell me about the water. Is the water safe to drink? Do I need anything special? People get up in arms thinking, this is some ignorant, probably American, assuming Spain's a third world country, water's not safe. That is not necessarily the question or the correct approach, right? Like, water may be potable, it may be drinkable, and locals might not be affected, and 90% of visitors might not be affected, but it's known that every country's water is treated differently, has its own bacteria, and affects systems that are not used to that differently. So I have had a lot of tummy troubles when I've traveled in first world countries, in third world countries, and so I take a probiotic. I've talked about that probiotic on this channel before. Happy to share the link if anyone wants to know which one I prefer. Maybe it's an unnecessary thing that I take, and it's more of a what's that expression? Placebo effect. But I haven't gotten sick. I haven't had tummy issues, but a lot of people have. And I had on my comment to the person who asked this question, just sharing my experience, I had someone trying to educate me with resources about travelers, upset stomach and this and that. Okay, I'm just sharing my experience, trying to be helpful. And I just want to keep stressing that the majority of the people on the actual Camino, that they are helpful. They believe your experience. They believe your stories. So that's just really what I mean about the echo chamber, right? Like 9 times out of 10 people believe this. So a voice that is maybe positing a different view gets drowned out. And then this is one too that I think about a lot. And I was so surprised when I walked my first Camino, because my limited experience on social media with Facebook groups was like, everyone's going to have the best technical gear, the most expensive packs, the top like merino wool brands, and the most expensive shoes, etc., etc. And to me, that very much seems to be like an Anglo phenomenon. Probably because we don't really have Decathlon, the French sporting good chain store, where they offer really nice products at a much cheaper price. But you're also going to meet tons of people walking without hiking poles, with an old backpack they borrowed from a friend that wasn't measured to fit their back, with regular tennis shoes. Some people decide a week before they go out, hey, I have some time, I'm just going to pack what I use for regular hiking and I'm going to go do this. Maybe your experience is going to be more comfortable for you with a lot of planning. And, that's me. I like planning. I like making sure I have the gear that works well for me. But I've also bought $7 shirts at Kohl's for the Camino. It's just, I just figure out what works or what my budget can afford and go from there. So don't be surprised when the majority of the packs you see are not Osprey, are not, my most recent one was Gregory, are not some of these brands that, are really top of the line, are measured to fit your body. That's not the reality of the majority of the people on the Camino that you see. Or, of course, the last one, the echo chamber effect. You're not a true pilgrim if you don't carry your pack. I'm not wading into that debate at all. I carry my own pack for personal reasons. But if I were to get injured and I couldn't, I would certainly consider sending it ahead so that I could finish my experience. And on the Camino, I did not see a single person that was judgmental of others who were having their pack transported. I know probably since I did the Camino Frances in 2018, I do think the industry around people bringing like full-on suitcases and having those shuttled every day probably has expanded a bit. But in general, when people had their bags transported, nobody that I saw treated them as any less, any different than. But, in the Facebook groups, I'd say in my experience, you're in the minority if you express that opinion that, hey, it's okay, do the Camino your way. all of that to say, there is one thing I want to prepare my fellow Americans, United Statesians about. I don't know if Canadians or, our fellow North Americans in Mexico or South Americans experience this, but one negative attitude I've seen a lot on in the social media groups that I also think you should just be prepared to encounter on the Camino are some stereotypes and sometimes prejudice against pilgrims coming from the US. Now, I'm not going to go into the why or any of that stuff. The only thing I'm going to say is the best thing you can do is be prepared and be ready to show them, show, don't tell, why they're wrong. I loved when I remember on my Camino Frances when I got somewhere, maybe like, I don't know, I've been on for a couple weeks and I got somewhere where someone says, "Oh my gosh, I heard about you. You're the American who speaks 3 languages," because they'd, never met an American that maybe even spoke another language, let alone 2 others. I don't know. But, do things to help people understand the wonderful aspects of Americans that people who have come to travel to America or really interacted with Americans in a close way abroad understand. We're extremely kind and polite. We're very curious. I think in general, we are really respectful. And when people come here, we make them part of our family, immediately our friend group. We're very, welcoming in that way. So just go in prepared. You may hear some comments or see some reaction towards Americans, but don't give people a reason, give people a reason to second guess those instinctual feelings. And, that to me is the best part about the Camino, right? Going in with an open mind, trying to go in either without prejudice or any prejudice or ignorance you bring in, allowing yourself to remain open the whole time and try to grow and change your position, because like I said, I mean, it's just easy to be kind. And so that was pretty long. Maybe this is is this my rant video? Have I ever done a rant video? But all of that to say, if you made it this far, it's take everything you see on social media, as always, this is a great lesson, right? With a grain of salt, and know that the people you meet when you actually get to your pilgrimage will make you forget all the drama, all the nonsense, and, just go have a great time, of course. All right. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but please be kind, be gentle. I'm just, trying to kind of get some of the negative energy that I have felt around this topic out. And as I've always said, I like to make videos, not that are going to blow up in popularity, because mine don't really, but just about things that are really important to me. So if this is important to you too, please drop a like, drop a comment, and engage. And I will see you in the next video. As always, buen camino.